Okay, so it's my pleasure to greet you here and to be here with you today. And we shall talk about Europa Nostra, culture as compass for European navigation. So before we go into the details and questions, I would like to introduce you the panel. So please, just correct me if I give any false data. So Agata Wasowska-Pawlik, Polish art historian, exhibition curator and museologist, and since 2018, the director of the International Cultural Center in Krakow. Is that right? Okay. Fairuz Alam Saidi, our very kind colleague at IASC. So you are absolutely welcome on board. Graham Bell, who is most known for being the president of Renaissance Foundation and international expert in culture, heritage management, and social capital. Graham, you are welcome. And Tamás Fejérdi, our age-old colleague, I mean not in your age, but since the beginning of the Institute. And we have been collaborating a lot. And Tamás is history preservation expert, cultural heritage expert, ICOMOS, UNESCO, Europa Nostra, president whatsoever, many functions. And Attila Sági will not be with us. He sent a message that he is sick today. Before we would go into the details...
May I add something?
Yes, sure.
Because the title of this panel is Europa Nostra, which might be understood very broadly as our Europe, but at the same time it means the name of the organization me and Graham Bell represents. We are both members of the board of Europa Nostra, and I think this is important for you to know because we will be also speaking not just on behalf of our own activity and organizations, but also on behalf of Europa Nostra.
Thank you very much. Actually, I just want to say a few words, and I think Tamás, you also have connections with Europa Nostra, if I'm right. Okay, so just before we would go into the details, just a very brief memory. Two giants passed away this year who had been members of European heritage very much. Jürgen Habermas, I think his idea on talk and discussion was key for European mind and European people in the Gutenberg Galaxy during the past 500 years. I think it's still very important for us. And also an Italian colleague, expert of microhistory, Carlo Ginzburg, he also passed away a few days ago. And in the last panel, somebody just mentioned small is beautiful. So I think Carlo Ginzburg really knew what it meant, small is beautiful. Europa Nostra, I think it was founded in 1963 in Paris. And the mission, as far as I understand, is to focus on cultural heritage and also natural heritage. And it's a certain kind of citizen, if I can say citizen science. So the citizens of Europe are also parts of the mission. Is that right? So since there are experts who know much more about Europa Nostra than myself, so please say a few words about the mission. What is that? Who starts? Well, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. The genealogy of the organization actually goes back to the Congress of Vienna, which was to address the Europe in the wake of Napoleon and how to create a Europe where there was no one country that had a stronger power over everyone else, dominion over the others. And it was that principle that was revived with the United Nations and the League of Nations, which then eventually gave birth to the Council of Europe and the European Union. And that's important because, in a sense, paralleling that process about identity and about how power is motivated through identity was the reason why Europa Nostra was created. So imagine that in the 1950s and then in the 1960s, the same individuals who were involved in the political process, such as Churchill and his son-in-law, were involved in developing civil society as a movement that in a sense would hold the politics and economics accountable. So Europa Nostra was born out of that sense of giving people a voice in that process and the journey that would follow.
Yes, but since then, a lot of has changed. We had fall of Iron Curtain, and since 1989, Europa Nostra has grew immensely. It's not just about the members from European Union countries, but from the whole Europe, meaning countries generally belonging to Council of Europe. And indeed, the shortest name for Europa Nostra is that it is the voice of civil society in the matter of culture and culture heritage. Even if this voice was for many, many years marginalized, and even today we've seen from our Albanian colleagues, suddenly culture is one of the elements that should be taken into consideration while we are talking about future challenges and the future developments that and of course, not mentioning his famous Jean Monnet saying about culture, that we shall all start with culture and what it means. At the same time, Europa Nostra is trying to, and I think it is succeeding, to build its position as one of the most important partners for European Commission in the dialogue concerning culture and culture heritage, together with other culture networks. We are an organization that is being heard, consulted, and we've been simply acknowledged by Commission. Even all the members comes from different countries. We have their own, let's say, burdens and obstacles, while meeting very often, we try to create a common voice, a European voice.
Yes, Tamás?
Okay. Thank you. So, as a practitioner, I was in a time for 4 years part of a jury in Europa Nostra Award, which was dealing with historic monuments conservation. There are 4 others groups, and I have to tell you that Europa Nostra was at the beginning or at that time in a very interesting position. At that time it was the awards of Europa Nostra was not actually awards of European Union. It is a further development, and I do believe that this activity, which award is only a sign of this common activity, it is hugely important. And you know, the composition of Europa Nostra is made by several not national, but maybe national, not several elements: Italian Nostra, Hungarian Nostra, Polonia Nostra, maybe, or I don't know the name of it. So and also there are members, civic members like ICOMOS Hungary and many others. So you can understand that that is something which is really a voice of culture heritage in Europe, but also how to say, a meeting point for understanding each other heritage. I do believe that this is the most important mission of Europa Nostra, because you know, it's interesting to understand what it means, unity in diversity, diversity in unity. So it means that Europa Nostra doesn't want to globalize or universalize the approach to heritage, but just to allow us to understand better each other, to know better each other, to know, to learn from each other. So it is really, in my view, this is a service.
Can I just add one statistic?
Yes, of course.
Just to give people a sense of scale, just so you understand who is this organisation. We have 230 member organisations in 50 countries and 150 associate organisations, which are institutes and municipalities and other organisations. So it is a significant sized organisation.
Okay, thank you. So actually, yes, sorry. Yes.
You can go on and then I will
Okay, later. Okay, thank you. So actually, we put together some questions, and I would like just to pick up what you just said, Tamás. What is the future of Europa Nostra? We heard a little bit about the turning points. Europe has always been diverse, and this diversity is one of the cornerstones of our cultural heritage. So in the 21st century, when we face population movements, war, do you think that we have a shared identity, or are the forces pulling us apart stronger? So what can we do to build and strengthen our European identity, and how culture and cultural heritage can serve as a basis or a background to it?
In the bedroom at the hotel is a leaflet promoting IASC, which says, think out of the box. It's wrong. You need to reprint them because other people think out of the box. What you should say at the bottom is red line, and below that you should say what box. Because the whole experience of being here is to think differently from conventional organizations. Now, I would also say that Europa Nostra is trying to do a similar thing in terms of breaking down the silos and the conventional divisions that have built up within Europe. So if it's promoting Europe not as a geographical place, but as a community, then the whole point is that, picking up from what Tamás has just said, is that we concentrate on those things which bring us together, which are in a sense Europeanness as well as local identity.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we all have multiple identities, and European is just one of them. And we have very, very local, the place we were born, and then the place we move, and the place we were educated or grown up. So it's quite important not to homogenize everything. It is completely counterproductive, and it's also one of the reasons why we support, we are within Europa Nostra, because we are trying to recognize these multiple layers, the palimpsest of identities we all present. This is truly important because it also is a counter reaction to something that Ivan Čolović described as a culture that Balkans, the terror of culture. He wrote a book about that. And we also observe it nowadays that nationalistic parties, they are trying to somehow use culture as a weapon, and that's something that people who are much more aware of the multiple layers of different identities should really act against.
Actually, I would like to have another example, which is outside a bit from Europe, but it is still a heritage world site, which is the Kasbah of Algiers. Maybe you heard about it. It's the site where the old town of Algiers exists, and then it has many different things and different aspects that it is very good in terms of shared Mediterranean heritage. It's not only like a border, because here when we're talking about like Mediterranean countries, maybe you can see it as a border because it's separate countries and histories and so on. But in this case also it's a bridge, because here we shared like a lot of things. We shared culture, we shared food, architecture from Andalus, from Andalusia, like from from Spain, and also because of the Kasbah went through different period of time, like from the Amazigh till the Arab countries, where the religion of Islam became the official religion in Algeria, and also from the language, Arab language, from there, and also through the Ottoman Empire. So it is very, very interesting world heritage. And also after that, when the French and colonialism came in 1830, and they took the place in like 132 years. Also, they wanted to just destroy the Algerian identity in somehow, like by building some buildings just in front of those old the Kasbah, and it is so different. And from this perspective, I would like to point about what can Europe learn from Kasbah, or the case of Kasbah of Algiers. So Europe can learn from the Kasbah of Algiers the importance of protecting historical cities, respecting cultural identity, and preserving living heritage. The Kasbah also reminds us that the diversity strongeth resilience, heritage strengthens belongings, and also dialogue strongeth cooperation. In this way, you cannot say that the only past, it is only just one of the old towns, but it's also a resource of building a more inclusive and connected future.
Thank you very much. Tamás, do you want to add anything at this point?
Just one sentence, picking up the previous sentences. I do believe that this level of different, or this identity levels is very much important, and Europa Nostra also a good tool to realize the subsidiarity. So each and every level is represented, and I just recall one, how to say, alarming element of Charles' presentation. Charles was showing us the climax of the so-called grey approach and going down, and this climax is very much, also we have seen on the screen, very much touched upon the European heritage. I mean the industrial heritage and many other elements which are no more having a real function. And one of the excellent programs of Europa Nostra is dealing with heritage in danger, and I was looking on those suggestions and proposals. I was really surprised that local people, local community, who theoretically have to hate of those no more existing, no more working industrial something, are really fighting for keeping them, because it is a part of their heritage, really heritage. I don't know if you want to add something to this one, but I do believe that is also I'm a conservator of historic monuments, so I like very much that we try to go to reuse or keep heritage, not just delete them. And I do believe that Europa Nostra had a lot of good examples and maybe good practices, I don't know. And maybe you can speak about a bit about this heritage count for Europe, because I do believe it's a very much important achievement of Europa Nostra.
Well, maybe it was one of the milestones for Europa Nostra. In 2015, we finished a report named Culture Heritage Counts for Europe, and we defined on how many fields of social life heritage really, for how many social fields of social life heritage really matters. And from that moment, it was very sure that the European Commission decided to organize European Year of Cultural Heritage in 2018, which was also a sort of important milestone for culture and cultural heritage being recognized on the European level. And just last week, well, this week in fact, it was the 18th of June, following the first very serious strategic document on culture, so Culture Compass for Europe, which was announced in November last year. Just this week, the president of the European Commission, the president of European Parliament, and the president of European Council, they signed a joint declaration expressing the fact that culture should be at the heart of all European policies. Well, they even and they really underline this kind of recognition of culture and cultural heritage. And I believe that it is somehow deeply rooted in all the work that among other organizations like Culture Action Europe and many ICOMOS, the Architects Council of Europe, the ICOM International Council Museum, that among those our report was also essential to be in the place that we are today.
Yes, anything else? Just please go ahead.
So back just to the point that about the heritage risk, I would like to go back to Casbah of Algiers, which also one of the negative things that I saw during my field research, that the deterioration of the building. That because of three main reasons. The first one is the overpopulation or occupation of those buildings following the independence, because some of rural population came through to the Casbah of Algiers in looking for more quality, of life, better quality of life and jobs after the independence in 1962. But still, the overuse of those buildings just make the building like very worst case and state. And then also the second thing, that the natural hazards can be affected those deterioration of the building, like through earthquakes and floods. And the third thing, that like years or decades of negligence of those buildings. So it is very important here, the role of the state on how they can do the project and avoid the delay, especially of those projects in terms of renovation of the important building like that.
Okay, so may I have a relating question to that and to what Tamás mentioned about the industrial culture heritage and those buildings which were, left behind. Just accidentally yesterday, in Trieste, I saw not one but several of these buildings, and I just realized that this is not our problem in the post-Eastern Bloc, that we have these huge industrial districts. But as I could see in Italy as well. So my question is whether there is good practice or best practice for dealing with these buildings, whether this is the the task of the governments, or whether there is any European common policy idea what to do with that heritage. Just a brief question, please.
Well, it's the responsibility of all of us, I think, not just governments, not just local authorities or municipality or regional authorities, but and civil society. I always think it's a common and joint responsibility. And of course, the thing is that the notion of heritage is changing, and heritage is not only about something that is beautiful, but also something that is ugly, and something that is not very pleasing us. So this is why industrial heritage is at such a risk, unless we find for it a new function. And that is why we need always a joint discussions what might be a new function for such a place. Without a function, it will always be then left and destroyed eventually. So we have to be aware that not everything can be saved. This is the first presumption. Then secondly, we need to think of a second function. And if there is, and there are many wonderful examples, very good examples, that many times new function for post-industrial heritage can be found, and especially that these buildings represent not only, that are not just buildings, but it's about our civilization, about man's achievements, about technology, about the ethos of our work. Not, for example, where I come from Poland, and in the south of Poland, you know, there is a region called Silesia, which is a former coal mining region. Coal mining is already dead. Yes, it's diminishing. Even if still in Poland our state is paying a lot to miners to dig more and more. But we have a serious discussion what should be preserved out from those left coal mines, which were many of them, where we had really many of them. Not everything can be preserved, but important intangible issue is that it's in this region the ethos of work is imminently connected with coal mines. And it's something so precious that if we abandon it, then we might lose for many years, because those people will feel left even more, not just giving them new opportunity. So there is, luckily, we have a museum of coal mining that is making a full digitization of the underground work. And you know, all the corridors, all the technology machines that were in use, and the issue, the challenge in this particular case is that people who were able to operate on those machines are dying, and there are not enough people who know how to make them functions. Yes. But if we are so looking at the steam machine, yes, it's a magic experience, still working. So we also need to remember how the coal mining was organized in that century, especially that historically this is the heart of the engine for development for 20 years, for 19th and 20th Germany, because this region belonged to Germany before the war. It was the source of their wealth. Yes, so remembering all those historical layers is important. So Europa Nostra rewards exactly adaptive reuse of industrial heritage building and many others, and these are quite promising examples. One just has to look at what we have awarded recently. Maybe you might add something about.
No, I think we should probably move on.
No, just go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm very grateful to you, Agata, because I had a very good and bad experience when we, in the framework of V4 cooperation, I had the chance to visit this place, Zabrze and other cities, other coal mines in Poland. And some weeks before that, I had also the chance to be a part of the Hungarian summer university concerning the monument conservation, and we visited similar monuments in the area of Pécs, Istvánbánya and other. The difference is fantastic. In our country, very unfortunately, it was sold and it was demolished, and each and every element made by metal, it was demolished, and just we have some ruins, terrible situation. And in your case, in Poland, it is already a situation which the site is maybe became a World Heritage recognition. We will have a world recognition. So what I want to tell you, that of course it's a shame to us, but it's not the point. The point is, as was mentioned by Agata, that each and every person, each and every level have the task and the responsibility, and the question was which is the future, not only Europa Nostra, but what is Europe's choice. And I really think that Europe is very much recognized as a cultural area or something like this in many cases. But even though I am a person of monument conservation, I do believe that culture is much, much, much larger, of course. And when we will be able to keep our roots, but the inventions, developments, everything is in connection with those roots, we could have the chance to keep our European speciality. And one more point, and stop myself. Sure, it was mentioned by Feiruz that one of the dangers is tourism, over-tourism, let's say. And Europa Nostra is also dealing with this issue very much. Maybe Graham will say some words on that. And I think that one of the danger when we love too much existing heritage, and we use them as just attraction. And it is a real danger to overuse them, the changes are more than possible. Each and every heritage element and ensemble has its the limits of his carrying capacity is not taken well. So there are many points we have to deal with. So maybe I'm too complicated. I wanted to tell you that culture is everywhere in each and every context in Europe, but not always have to be seen separately. It always have to be seen as a part of our life.
Yes. Would you like to add anything? No? Not at this point? Yes, Ferenc?
Well, we had a very fruitful discussion over dinner yesterday with Agatha and Graham and Tamás. And I think we should go back to that larger interpretation of culture and intangible cultural heritage. Meaning, I think, well, how to relate, that was the question, the geopolitical problems, the pressure on Europe to become a larger, if you want, military unit, a defense system, or again, a postmodern empire, and this cultural identity issue. I think Europe was successful when it was able to synthesize different cultures, philosophies, and religions. It did not happen too often, but it did happen. When the Arabs were coming up, sciences came from the Arab world, mathematics and medical science, in what is today Italy, and what is today Spain. There were times when there was dialogue, there was the cross-fertilization, and Europe was kind of growing fast and in a fast and generous ways. In the moment, it started to exclude otherness, so to speak. The situation has changed. We are talking about centuries now. We are again under the pressure to become more self-reflective. And this is why the issue of largest Central Europe, the enlargement towards Western Balkans and also Asia, Southern Caucasus, is a very valid question, and that means that intercultural heritage has to be understood. Again, why do we think that Algeria is not part of European culture? It is. It depends. Israel believes that they are European, and they are in a certain way. And this kind of thinking would bring us closer to the idea of more generosity is needed. Europe's centers should move towards the east. It's impossible. It's impossible to continue the way how we are going now. That the political and the economic centers are far in the western part of Europe, Brussels and Paris and somewhere in Germany, and there's a cultural amorphous kind of chaotic situation all around in Europe. So this kind of generosity should be reinterpreted, and this is the question of identity and cultural heritage.
Well, please respond, but I would like to add that as a historian that I believe that this inclusion and exclusion went in parallel throughout European history. So I cannot see any like a golden age when inclusion was stronger, and then so I think it was a dynamical movement during the past 1,000 years. But please, Graham, go ahead.
I was thinking in our discussion last night, and the phrase that was used about can we aspire towards a shared identity? I would probably say that's the wrong question to ask, because the theme that we've already heard during today, and I was thinking particularly in Charles's introduction, is that before we have economics, before we have all of those issues about how we articulate and create the engines of economies and so on, we have values. So if I substitute the word culture with values, suddenly you realize that in order for you to be here today, for us to communicate, for you to think whether what I'm saying is of interest or rubbish, is because you have developed a set of values against which you measure life, your experiences, and the influences that you're subject to. So if we then lift that to the level of a Europe, and in a sense Europe doesn't exist. Europe is a construct that we overlay over a piece of the globe. And coming back to what I think you were considering last night, is that culture is not a note in the margin of the European model of politics or the economy. Culture is the means, the ability, the values-based judgments upon which we can do any of these things. So I think there is a need not only to be able to articulate those nationally or even at a very local level, but for me the whole reason why we're here and what I get out of coming to Kerseg is this questioning about how we can find not necessarily a shared identity, but the ability to develop multiple identities in a shared dialogue.
So just to add one thing to this, I do believe that yes, it is right. You said, Graham and Ferenc, but I want to raise one word, which is the respect, or the mutual respect. I do believe that when we are speaking about European identity, this is something which has to be maybe developed and has to be strengthened, because it was mentioned that there is a menace, a threat that maybe nationalism or populism is just going on and using this heritage and cultural issues. But I do believe that that it's not a real danger if we are respecting the cultural approaches, traditions, and heritage of the others. And I know that in Europe, how to put it nicely. So the borders were changing time to time, and many other things happened. And I do believe that the time has come that we have to, have an overarching look and accept all of different cultures. I mean the local cultures. And I read this new document you mentioned, and I was almost happy with, I have to tell you, but there was a very interesting part of it, just telling us that we have to respect languages in Europe, and it was add that official language European Union, I disagree with it, because there are so many languages in Europe which are not official. So this have to be deleted, I do believe. But anyway, my point was that respect is very much important also in the cultural field.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
And I would also add about, apart from the value of respect, the value of being curious. And in the previous panel, somebody mentioned, I think it was you, literature, yes? And do we know each other in Central Europe? Do we translate enough of our books among our countries?
No.
It's not only about being translated into English, because it's of course the global language and it helps to gain Booker Prize, it helps to gain Nobel Prize. Of course that's important. Okay, Nobel is still Swedish, but you know what I mean. But do we know each other really? How many books of Latvian of Latvian authors have you read recently in Hungarian? So let's blame ourselves that we are not curious enough of other people. What do we know about Lithuanian literature recently? Not mentioning Ukrainian, and you know they are doing a lot because now we see with the aggression and the war that it's also a cultural war. And suddenly we realize a soft power of culture Russia was imposing on us for many, many years, not just recently, since Catherine the Great and Peter the Great. We believed that Russian culture is imperial and wonderful and beautiful. But what are the rest of culture of our small countries? Okay, maybe Poland is not that small, but still, yes.
Do you think,
and that is why let's look at ourselves, what we are doing in terms of our national policies to know the culture of our neighbor. Because then we shall always, very often we ask, why my neighbor is my enemy? Yes? And in Hungary, I think it's also an important question. Anyway, in Poland, we also try to ask this question very often. Why my neighbor is your enemy, or vice versa? So that is why these are this value of being curious should be somehow apart from participatory co-creation approach about democracy, should be somehow nourished, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, what do you think? What is the reason behind that it's not, I don't think that we are not curious, but still you are absolutely right that we don't know each other's culture well enough.
Because we are still living in the 19th century national imaginary world. Yes, in 19th century the notion of nation was invented, and we are still live in our drawers.
Yeah, but still we followed in the 19th century the French, the British and the German examples and culture.
It's the inferiority complex we have.
Okay.
Yes, it's
exactly.
The inferiority complex that we have to fight again and again. Unfortunately, our inferiority complex is usually connected with our superiority complex toward our neighbors. So that is why we in Central Europe, to a certain extent, need ongoing psychotherapy, which should be somehow done by, for example, literature. If we read more, of course, it's a question of readership. Yes, Czech Republic is a happy state because the level of readership is very high in Czech Republic. But in my country, it's not that good. So,
sorry, may I add a special example to underline, which was said just now by Agata. I was asked to be a proofreader of a book dealing with the world heritage properties in Central European countries, except Poland. I don't know why Poland was inside. Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, and Hungary. And I got a translation from original Czech manuscript, and I had to make the proofreading. It's a big shame to us that I knew the monuments, but didn't knew what is behind. So I have to ask Tina Markushova from Košice to help me about the Slovakian and Czech places, and also I knew a bit better the Austrian ones, but it was a big revelation to me that, okay, as you said, we know better the French and British and mostly German and Italian examples, but not so much the neighboring countries. And maybe we didn't have the grand tour in this region. Sorry about it. And we do have, many years ago, started this excellent good exercise among the V4 countries, and based on the institution led by Agata in Krakow. And each year we have a so-called Summer Academy of World Heritage Site Conservation. It's a very good school for us to learn from each other, to understand. And we are just traveling in different countries. It is really fantastic, but you're absolutely right. These two different, how to say, approach, inferiority and superiority exist at the same moment.
Can I just briefly
Absolutely.
One of the slides I've used here is an image of a cylinder. So a cylinder is circular and it has length. If you shine a light at the end and a light from above, you have two very different images. So you have someone who sees a circle and someone who sees a rectangle. And each of them will absolutely argue that the other is wrong. And the reason I show that slide is it's about there can be parallel narratives about what truth is. And this comes to the surface when we discuss European identity and values, because people will argue absolutely aggressively that the circle is the truth, and they won't accept that there can be any other narrative. And again, I come back to being here and that we ask questions that are not asked elsewhere. And a place like this recognizes that there is a circle and there is a rectangle, but there is a solid and there are lights. And that's the approach we should have when we're looking at European cultural heritage and its impact on the economy, on society, on all aspects of what makes up a society.
Yes, please.
Actually, I have just thought that we should have a balance between all of this element. For example, if we're talking about preserving our culture, it means also we should take care about the development of those buildings or those heritage. And at the same time, like if you have like identity or identity of those heritage, it also could be a balance between the identity and diversity, because here the diversity can be also part of this identity. Another point is that if those heritage are part of the memory of like our memories, it also needs to have a thought about the future needs of those kind of heritage. So here the balance of between all of this element is very important thing that we should focus on.
Okay, thank you. And now I would like to open the floor for questions, please. Janos.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this panel very much because you made the moderator almost jobless. But all these very interesting and very valuable discussions, I am just asking that how could you explain, or what is your hold on that this cultural identity, this cultural heritage, how does it help us to make the continent or the European Union strong enough in the global competition? Because we are losing out, and this was in the previous panel, and basically you also touched upon, and we are also even culturally challenged by American eating culture, McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chickens and whatsoever. No, it's okay, it's fine. This is the last bastion of European culture. How does it help us? How does it make us strong to be a valid player in the global competition?
I really very much enjoyed it. Agata, I really enjoyed the mention of palimpsest, because I think that is really quintessential quality of this region. And besides those, damaging psychological conditions that we suffer from, we all also have a narcissism of small differences. So that's what we like to concentrate on. The things that we can distinguish are completely different from our neighbors when they really are not at all. So yes, I very much agree for, psychological counseling for the entire, all of Europe. So my question is, you're not thinking of moving to a kind of Euro-Asia Nostra, where I mean, actually, the palimpsestic history of Europe can be distinguished, okay, can be seen, because too often when we talk about our Europe these days, it's being, propagandized, especially by certain political forces, to exclude and to mean just one type of Europe, a white, a Christian, a certain kind of Christian Europe. So I'm wondering if you're having any kind of, discussion about maybe expanding the name of the organization or making it more inclusive. Yeah.
Well, maybe because we will forget. Maybe we'll answer those first two, and then we will, if it's possible. Yes. So answering your question, what might be the solution? You cannot expect any other answer from me. Invest in culture and arts education, and culture education, because it is artistic and cultural activity that brings people together. Only when people are together and are doing something together, and it's very often not just projects, not professional, not building road or something like that, but doing really something together on a common, for a public good, for a common good, makes them responsible for their neighborhood, for their area. So culture is always in the end of any national budgets, always. Education, the same. Yes? Why? Why? I understand that now we are investing in defense, but culture infrastructure and culture is also a critical infrastructure. If you want to fight disinformation, if you want people to be more critical towards everything what is going on in social media, we have to invest in their education. Otherwise, we are lost. Yes. So culture can bring more social ties, and only social personal ties are something that makes us more human, and I think it makes us more innovative. Yes, and especially that nowadays even culture participation is done, in a loneliness. We listen to music on our own. We open Netflix or other streaming. We watch movies. Okay, reading books was always a lonely practitioner. Yes, but. Yeah, but at schools, that this is, it's especially now going to the theater, going to the opera, going to the Philharmonic is less accessible for people. We have to make them those activities more accessible. I understand that it's not possible everywhere. Rural areas are usually much farther from the big centers. But still, if we leave those people behind, then we will have something what you said, that it's just one type of European culture. Driven by white men, Christian, very conservative. Yes. So again, terror of culture, just one culture. Yes, one type of culture.
If we're coming to the end, a warning note. What is the biggest risk to Europe? Complacency. Complacency where we're not bothered enough to do something about what we're concerned about. And let me give you one example from a conference I was in Budapest last week. In the UK, nearly 15% of people under the age of 25 are designated as NEETs. That means not in education, learning or training. So not in education, employment or training. And what's worse is that we're getting to a state where people in that age group are thinking, well, why bother? Because if I apply for 50 vacancies, I don't even get a reply from the employers because there are so many applications that it's just not possible. So people are losing a belief, a faith in society. So if there was a message from today about Europeanness, which includes transnational movement, looking for opportunities, going where the work is, please don't be complacent.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for many thought-provoking ideas. One resonated with me also with what I was thinking previously, especially what dear colleague Graham said about the importance of values. So I thought about it a bit as you spoke, and it seems to me that this is crucial actually. But there is a slight problem. Values we cannot reason our way into values. So there needs to be, it seems to me, a story, an overarching story that is not exclusionary, but inclusive. And not only inclusive in the classic European way, because now we have a lot of individuals coming from elsewhere with their own backgrounds, lived experiences, cultures. So those were my thoughts, but my question is, what do we do? Where do we go from here? So an easy question. Thank you.
Please don't forget your answer, but since we really have to finish briefly,
sorry, if I may, just very quickly. Thank you for saying that culture matters much more than businesses or anything else, because this is the fundament. And if that won't work, then won't work anything. And actually the Chinese approach, what we have seen, this huge development is thanks to a huge investment into the education they made at the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000 years. So we have to consider how to improve this capacity and how to be more open and really asking about more information and learn about each other much more. And you are very right saying that we even in Central Europe do not know each other. There is a certain historical reason from the communist time because of this happened. Before that, we had lots of regions with multiple identities, just like Bratislava or even Kőszeg or any other regions where all the population was moving all the time around because of being in a very difficult situation, wars and several challenges around. But my question on you, how we can enhance the cooperation, how we can move young people to be open, not only to follow, let's say, English general average approach on cultural information, but to learn each other languages in the neighborhood and to go further on, let's say, literature or music or whatever else. One says that actually culture is a fundament for trust, and without trust you don't have peace, you don't have business, you don't have anything. And for this reason it is crucial that we move a bit forward and to each other. So more or less this is my question.
Since young people are here, so since the young people are actually physically here, so I would like to ask you, and Ferenc suggested that. Totally right. 1 second. Young people, yes, please. Comments, questions, and then the last question.
I think it's okay. I have a very, very small point. It's not even a question. But it's triggering me, so maybe that's my psychological problem in line with other psychological problems of this region. You mentioned that there is this, or that was and still still going on, this imposition of Russian culture by Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. And I think it's important to maybe get rid of this epithet, the Great, because it's kind of strengthening and repeating the the power, and I think it's important to get rid of it and just be aware of that. Thank you.
And there was one question. Could you please?
Thank you so much. I'm just a doctor, but also a faculty here, and we talk a lot about how to communicate, for example, the importance of healthcare and so on. And I was just triggered in my mind to also discuss how we could communicate better the importance of culture and education to the general public and politicians. And maybe we should learn some language they understand, like soft power is a popular terminology now. They like power. So let's just call it power itself. Culture is a soft power. PR and marketing and branding, this is what they understand. Because European, if something is made in Europe, should be cool in Asia and Africa and US, and they should pay more for any European good. So this is what government will understand. Of course, tourism is an immediate impact we can measure as an income in revenue. So I'm sorry to be so materialistic, but this is the language we have to learn to communicate with politicians and the general public.
A bit unpolite from our side that we invite here young fellows from different parts of the world, and we are talking about bashing ourselves as Europeans, being interested in Europeans. And it would be very nice to hear your reflections, your questions, even a short question or short reaction. Go on. Introduce yourself first.
Yeah. So it's so interesting how to make youth care about it, as many people have mentioned it. To enter a certain dialogue, you need to learn English. And to learn English, you need to consume American culture and Anglo-Saxon and British and all that. So to make young people really care about, and not just them being overloaded with information, I feel like we have to really focus on like these regional connections. For example, like Visegrad. For example, because I was listening to all of you, and basically I realized I don't really know as much as I thought of Visegrad before. And hopefully, with like the new government, these connections can be better. But we could not just use Visegrad and Central Europe as just like geopolitical and like economical, but also for cultural connections as well. That's like my thought from like this panel, which was really interesting because I don't know quite enough about our surrounding neighbors and their cultures.
Thank you. Any other notes, comments, questions from our guest students, please? If not, then final reflections.
On Facebook recently, I heard a lecture delivered entirely in Gen Alpha slang, and that really made me think about the use of language and how we communicate, and I realized I can't.
Okay. Very shortly, we should not forget the question of János Bogardi, why it is useful and why we have to really dealing with those things. And my answer is quite simple. It's a kind of like why we are learning mathematics. Because it is something to help us to understand better and to solve better things and challenges. And it's, in my view, this culture and cultural diversity is very similar. If you don't know about our identity, about our roots, about our culture, doesn't work. So in my view, this is as a tool for better understanding for ourselves and each others, and for the conservation of existing values and for creation of new ones is the same in my approach.
Thank you. One final
Yes. Actually, as a member of Gen Z, I would like to add that that culture usually we hear it about like UNESCO or those like Nostra, Europe Nostra or something, but actually the social media also play a very important role. Like you can know a lot about different culture by like just scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, but it's we should think about it like in other way, but not only just institute or something, but funny but also easy way to have more cultural and through our generation or through our like use of social media. Yeah, thank you.
So maybe in the end I will not be that I don't know, optimistic. I am very pessimistic about remaining, I mean that the culture and culture heritage will remain relevant for the society. Well, it's the biggest challenge that we people working in culture and culture heritage feel that our work remain relevant. That's something that worries me at most, and that I do everything to do it. But I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not very often able to talk to younger generations. I don't know the language. Running an institution is a good example in this, because the language is of course the problem, not the English or Polish, but the quality of language and the way we use it. So becoming and remaining relevant for the society, this is the huge challenge nowadays. But to answer a little bit more optimistic, I run an institution that deals with Central Europe, and I didn't bring it now, but I will bring it tomorrow, an issue of our journal called Herito. The recent issue is on Moravia, the beautiful region in Czech Republic. It's a Polish and English bilingual issue, so you will be able to dive into not very distant region. And in 1 week time, three of us, we are getting to region of Gemer. Who knows where it is? Gemer. So. Well, so maybe in 1 or 2 years' time, we will have an issue of Gemer and Gothic root there.